I'm Lucy from BookX and I'm here today to talk about Elevation by Stephen King. Elevation is a tiny novel, but a total firework. Before I go into all the reasons why I thought this book was absolutely fabulous, I would just like to say, if this is the first time you are joining our channel, hello, nice to meet you, please do subscribe, because we do all sorts of reviews for books across all sorts of genres, and also a weekly roundup of our favourite bookish news from across the globe. So it would be brilliant to have you on board. Right, Elevation by Stephen King. Look how small it is. It's a bit of a cheat really to call this a proper novel. It is only 135 pages long. It's a novella really, but my goodness, what is there is pure gold. It focuses first and foremost on a character called Scott. Now, Scott is losing weight at a rate of knots really, at a really what should be a terrifying and worrying rate, at least £1 a day, sometimes £2. But the curious thing is that no matter how much weight he loses, his mass is staying the same. So his clothes fit perfectly. He looks exactly the same as he did before, and crucially actually he feels even more healthy and full of life than he did to start with. But the really strange bit of it is that actually his weight kind of doesn't change no matter what he's wearing. He can stuff his pockets with quarters. He can hold £20 dumbbells when he stands on the scales. But actually, he weighs exactly the same as if he wasn't holding them. His story crosses with two other main characters, Deirdre and Missy, the lesbians who live next door and let their dog, very annoyingly, poop on Scott's lawn. Now, this couple have a restaurant in the town that is dying a slow and painful death, because actually if there is one thing that the town hates more than lesbians, it is lesbians who have the cheek, the audacity to actually go and get married. So these stories conflate in a really interesting and unexpected way. And the town that this takes place in will be very familiar if you're a Stephen King fan, because it is in fact Castle Rock, the fictional town in Maine that has had more than its share of the supernatural in Stephen King's novels over the years. And there are all sorts of little nods in here that will satisfy King fans. For example, a local band renames themselves Pennywise for Halloween. And actually, there are other classic King characteristics going on in this novel, not least the everyday hero being, front stage and centre, which makes them so incredibly likeable in King's books. But that's kind of where classic King ends, because this isn't a horror story. This is a million miles from being a horror story. This is a bittersweet moral comedy. It is at turns really silly, but also really poignant. It is gentle in lots of ways. It's a quiet book, but it's one where the central theme is elevation itself, and the idea that you can push yourself beyond what you are now, that there is always still more that you can be. I absolutely loved this book for its simplicity really at its core, and just the precision of its aims and its execution. You can just imagine Stephen King sitting down on a Sunday afternoon. He's got nothing better to do. He'll just knock out a book. You can imagine him just tapping away on his laptop and making this complete book in one sitting, because it just has this feeling of being utterly effortless, like he made it for the joy of it. And of course, we know really that it is not effortless in the slightest. It is immense skill that goes into giving us the illusion of it being effortless. And what I love about Stephen King's prose, about the style in which he writes, which is just demonstrated so perfectly in this novel, is that simplicity. It's that nothing is ever overreached. No points are laboured, nothing is forced, and instead you've got this this writing in which metaphors and similes just spring to his fingertips. They're never over-egged. There are quips in dialogue which just feel utterly natural, and descriptions of places or people are just boiled down to their absolute bare minimum. But so you've got this just one sentence that describes a person, and yet you know that person so completely and utterly, and they're so believable and rounded to you because he has got the choice of words, the way he forms those sentences, just spot on. Nothing is overcooked in this novel, and there's a real warmth at the heart of it, which also, I guess, actually is pretty much a Stephen King characteristic across the board. He has this empathy with his characters, which he just shows through this really warm wit and makes you root for them, I guess, really. You know that Stephen King likes his characters and he wants us to like them too. And I think, you know, what the skill behind books like this is taking those characters and putting them in situations that really are pretty silly, but making them somehow turn into so much more to give them such, you know, incredibly impactful depth. I love it. This book is just ultimately a manifesto for tolerance and dignity and rational thought. That is what Stephen King is trying to get across in Elevation, and I think he absolutely nails it. It is really totally an uplifting joy from, you know, the very beginning to the very, very end, as Scott's story crosses with Missy and Deirdre, and really the whole town is drawn into their relationship and raised above, so elevated above, you know, the standards that they have previously set themselves. It is just a total joy to watch it unfold. And I got to tell you, I finished this book, you know, only a couple of hours ago, and I've just been walking around with a great big fat smile on my face. I enjoyed it that much, and I can thoroughly recommend it. And oh, also, it's actually worth saying that I read that Stephen King actually narrates the audiobook himself. So if you are into audiobooks, you already know that that is going to be a total treat. There you have it. They are my thoughts. Pretty one-sidedly, actually. It's not very often you get a book that you can just not find any issue with, really, is it? At all. It's a real treat. Stephen King, Elevation. Totally recommend it. If you did like this review, please do subscribe to our channel, and also check out bookaxe.com to find books you'll love and readers just like you. Also the apps, they're completely free, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.